Hi friends, welcome to a brand new episode of That Healing Feeling with me, Neha Ranglani. And in today's episode, we are going to share insights about a vegan lifestyle and how it has an impact on our spiritual health, emotional health, and our overall well-being. My guest for today is Jamie Logan, who is an animal activist, a filmmaker, and a media personality based in New York. She's also known for her animal rights films that have got over 75 million views, as well as her Jamie's Corner YouTube show and podcast, where she uses humor to educate people on the streets about how their food gets to their plate. So do watch this episode till the end because I'm sure you're going to gain a lot of insights. Also, subscribe to our channel and to Neha Ranglani Shorts, where we put up short clips of this episode so that you can get some useful insights quickly. So, Jamie, hi.
Hello.
It's so nice to have you. And I'm so glad we could do this. Like, this was just so end moment, but I'm so glad you could make it for this podcast because there's so much I want to talk to you about veganism and just living a vegan lifestyle.
Thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to chat with you about so many things that I care deeply about. And hopefully your audience will find this informative and life-changing.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure. So tell me, Jamie, you are a vegan activist.
Yeah.
Now, that's a very rare and unconventional profession. How did that happen for you? How did you turn a vegan? Were you always a vegan? What's your journey been like?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, it definitely is an unconventional job title, I guess. And I was not raised vegan. I was not always a vegan. But when I was 13 years old, I saw a pig livestock truck on the highway. And that kind of changed my life forever. Because
At
13, I saw this pig livestock truck. I was in the car with my dog. And I just remember in that moment looking at the pigs in the truck and my dog on my lap and thinking, what is the difference between these two animals? And from there, it just got me looking more into the food system. And I didn't go vegan that day, but I stopped eating pigs. And then slowly but surely, I learned about what was happening to cows and chickens and all other animals and decided to eventually leave them all off my plate. But I never saw myself becoming an activist per se. My whole life, I was very go with the flow and kind of class clown and didn't, I guess, realize how powerful our voices can be. And in order to create change and in order to I guess, cultivate change, you really need to speak up. And so that's when I started getting involved in activism, was a few months after going vegan.
So that was what age? At what age did you completely turn vegan?
So I went vegetarian first and then I went vegan at 18.
At 18.
Yeah. So I'm 26 now. And I just noticed it was actually supposed to just be a month-long challenge. It was called Veganuary. January 1st, 2018. You guys know the New Year's resolutions that people do. And I decided, let me just try this out for a month. And originally I thought of it as a diet. And meaning that I would just leave meat, dairy, and eggs off my plate and that would be it. And then after the month, I could go back to eating my bagel with cream cheese and my favorite cheesecakes. And in that month, I started learning about what was happening to animals in these industries. And it became much more of a lifestyle and an ethical stance against animal cruelty and abuse. And I was just shocked. I felt like I had been lied to my whole life. And I think as a person that considered themselves to be an animal lover and I would try to strive to do better and be kind, eating them no longer aligned with how I wanted to be or live my life.
Right. That's amazing. And how did vegan activism as a career or a profession happen for you?
Yeah. So I, for years, attended many different protests and I got involved in going to slaughterhouse vigils where I would film some of the conditions that the animals are in. And I was just really trying it any way that I could to raise awareness and to help animals, even if it was just giving food or water, donating what I could, time, money. And right out after college, I started working for a film company called Cave Light Films. And we produced 6 short documentaries that told stories about animal rights related issues. And for me, film was a big, I guess, it was a big part of my life in transitioning to being an animal rights activist and vegan, because it helped me become aware of what was happening in these industries. So that's why I started getting into film, because I realized that you can reach so many people through film and documentaries. So we worked on these 6 short documentaries, and one day my boss at the time said to me, I'd love to come and film some of your activism and outreach, because at the time I was going to this thing called AV, Anonymous for the Voiceless. And long story short, what that is we hold TV screens and we show people just standard practices of what happens to animals. And we just engage in very peaceful educational conversations. And most people don't know where their food is coming from, and yet they're eating it 3 times a day. So we're just out here to show them, well, this is, what happens. The industries aren't going to show you themselves. So, if you should become aware of it, kind of thing. So anyway, he comes and films some of my conversations with people on the street, and we got back to his apartment and watched some of the footage, and there was something so awkward and just kind of funny about these conversations.
I'd love to know.
And we ended up posting these on YouTube, and next thing you know, my channel formed. It's called Jamie's Corner, and I think it's just a way to do activism that's sustainable, because I'm being myself, and there's something funny about it, but of course serious of what's happening to the animals. And so I'm just trying to reach people really in any way.
Yeah, I did see one reel when I was going through your Instagram, and I saw a reel where you were trying to show the lady what happens in the slaughterhouses and in the the meat industry, and she just didn't want to even stand there. She said, you know what, this conversation is making me uncomfortable, and she walked away.
She said, I am not having fun anymore. And I said, well, the pigs in the gas chambers aren't having fun either. Yeah. I'm like, it's not fun to think about what happens in the food system, but we have every reason to think about these things, especially if we are the reason that it's happening.
So true. Also tell me, Jamie, what changes have you seen in your physical health, in your mental health, emotional health after you've turned vegan? Because I have seen a lot of changes.
Yeah.
I was a hardcore non-vegetarian, turned vegan about 8 years back, and I did see like a world of a difference in my health, in my gut, in my skin, my energy levels. But what's your experience been like with a vegan lifestyle?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that health is one of the many reasons people look into a vegan lifestyle in the first place. Although health is not what keeps me vegan, I think what keeps me vegan and what always will make me vegan is the animals, is thinking what happens to the animals. So not thinking of it as a diet, but more so an ethical stance against the abuse. But in that month that I first tried out a plant-based diet, I noticed that my digestion was better. I had more energy. My skin also cleared up. I was less inflamed. I think that I noticed the biggest change, believe it or not, becoming vegan from a vegetarian than I did giving up meat, which is interesting. I think also we have these voices coming at us left and right of some of my family telling me that I need more protein, or that I'm weak, and that if I don't drink milk, I'm not going to get calcium. And so I had these things in my head, and you almost start to have this placebo effect of like, am I not feeling good? Is this something that I could do in the long run? Am I going to die because of this?
Yeah.
So the placebo, when I first went vegetarian, actually, when I was 13, I was trying it out, and I would go like 6 months being vegetarian, and then the voices would come at me, and I was a small child. Like I was really
just about entered into your teens.
Yeah. And so then I would think that I was tired because I think I was just hearing everybody tell me that I was. And so I went back to eating meat, and there was no difference. I mean, my levels were perfectly fine. And what's interesting is my blood work now is better than it's ever been. So I try to get it done every 2 years or so. And I've been vegan for 7 years and vegetarian before that. But I noticed that my iron levels are super high now. Whereas when I was eating animals, my iron was really low.
Yeah. And that's a very contradictory thing because, most of the time when you turn vegan, most of the people will tell you, where will you get your protein, calcium, but where will you get your iron from? Because meat gives you, the heme iron and, it's like the most bioavailable form of iron and that kind of stuff. And trust me, even when I went vegan, my levels improved. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that for myself. I wouldn't say that, you may not need supplements. Obviously, it depends on the health of your gut and how well are you absorbing nutrients. For some people, yes, supplements becomes a very necessary and an imperative part of their diet regime and, their health plan. But overall, your gut health, your inflammation, everything starts going down and you start absorbing nutrients better.
Totally. I absolutely noticed that. And when it comes to supplements, there's generally a general rule of thumb is most people should be taking B12 and D3. Being in New York City in the winter where I live, there is very little sunlight that I'm getting. And so my vitamin D levels have been low in the past. And so I just take a supplement and it's fine. But it's important to remember that all the animals people are eating are supplemented with these same thing. So instead of going through the bodies of the animals where you're then taking in all the cholesterol and the hormones and the antibiotics, you could just go directly to the source and to the supplement.
Yeah. Like you rightly said, you're low on D3 where you don't get enough sunlight for many, many months in the year. We, being a tropical country, India, we still have D3 deficiency. We struggle with it despite having so much sunlight. And I think that has a lot to do with the way our bodies absorb and how much time we are spending in the sun. And then again, it all narrows down to your body's ability to synthesize D3, which may not be good because the body is inflamed and has a lot of toxins and, a lot of other factors that play a role in D3 synthesis in our body. And that's just the case, I think, everywhere. So supplements is necessary, but we always hear people saying that on a vegan diet, you'll need more supplements. And I don't think that's the case because I've seen non-vegetarians in my practice as well who have B12, D3 deficiencies and iron deficiencies just because their gut health is so poor.
People think that these animals are some type of reservoir of nutrients and a waterfall of B12 and D3 and protein and iron. And it's like those animals got every single nutrient that they eat from plants.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
why are we eating like this? Like we can just eat it like this.
Right. Exactly. We're just going through them to get to what we could get otherwise. And I think it's important to note that you can get every single nutrient that you need to thrive and survive on a plant-based diet. Even the American Dietetic Association has stated that at all stages of life, including infancy and old age, you can be healthy on a plant-based diet. And it's important to note, too, that hospitals are not filled with Whole Foods plant-based vegans. They are filled with people that have heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all food-borne illnesses.
Exactly. And these are all inflammatory conditions.
Yes.
And animal foods are inflammatory and we do not realize that they cause so much inflammation in our body. And all we're trying to do is try to correct or mask the symptoms of those diseases through medications and, through supplements. But till you don't get the source of inflammation out of your life, you're not going to get to the root cause resolution of the problem.
Exactly. And I think for a long time before I was thinking about, what happened with the animals, I think I was interested in health because I played sports and I wanted to feel good. And I mean, of course, like I would probably be vegan regardless of my health, because I don't want to hurt animals. But the fact of the matter is when we take care of ourselves, we can be that much more effective in our daily lives. And so you're healing people truly from the inside out. And I think a diet has a big part of that.
Absolutely.
So I was giving a presentation at this high school a few weeks ago, and one of the sections in the presentation was about health and foodborne illnesses. And I came across these stats that I shared with the class that were absolutely shocking. And the stats were that 1 in 5 people develop heart disease in America. 1 in 6 people develop cancer globally. Wow. Meanwhile, only 10% of cancers are hereditary. So that means 90% of people getting cancer, it has to do with their environment or what they're eating. And that was shocking to me. 1 in 3 people are obese in America. That was like, I mean, if this isn't a wake-up call, I don't know what is.
Exactly. And most people think that they have genes for a certain disease, so they'll get it because of the genes, but genes don't play such a big role in disease manifestation as much as your epigenetics do. And that is your environment. So genes just load the gun, environment pulls the trigger. And that's how it is. And cancers, like you rightly said, we see so many people today battling with cancer. And it has a lot to do with the kind of food we are eating. And I've said this so many times. The kind of suggestions our doctors give us when we go to them with a cancer case or maybe a cancer patient when they go to a doctor. And when the cancer patient asks them about food, you'll be shocked to hear what the doctor says. Eat everything. Please drink 2 glasses of milk a day. Yes. Yes.
It's like they're trying to kill us.
Yes. And when the patient asks them, can I eat non-veg? Yeah, I mean, you can do it a little bit, not a problem. But, just chemotherapy is fine. And, go through the process. Food is okay. You can eat whatever you want. And this is the most absurd and the most damaging suggestion anyone can give a cancer patient.
Mm-hmm. It's devastating because we trust these doctors. We look up to them. We think that they know everything.
Exactly.
Yet when you look into how much nutritional study these doctors have, it's very little compared to their overall education. It's actually only a few hours of nutritional study in the years that they're in school, which is interesting because instead of looking at the root cause of our diseases, they're just looking at how can we fix this after the disease has already manifested.
Exactly.
Let me give you medication 1. Let me give you medication 2. And then in the long run, these people are suffering. I don't know many people above the age of 65 that aren't on blood pressure, cholesterol medicine, which for me, I don't want to be in my 60s and having to take all these different pills.
Exactly. I always tell my clients, if you go to a carpenter, he'll help you with your furniture. If you go to a cobbler, he'll help you with your shoes. So you cannot expect somebody who's learned medicines and drugs to help you with diet and food and lifestyle, because that's just not the right thing to do. And I think you should let that role be played by the right person in your life, because that's how you're going to get better. And you spoke about cholesterol medications, and I know how big an industry the statin industry is in the US.
It is massive. And I've had personal experience with it because my dad was on these medications. He's 66 years old. And my grandfather also, before he passed, was on all these medicines, and he ended up dying of heart disease.
Yeah.
And so just to see these two people that are in my family, I mean, my dad and my grandfather, could be considered hereditary, but how can we prevent these hereditary diseases from happening?
Yeah.
So it's a great thing that, okay, I know that lifestyle and a plant-based diet is actually the only known diet to not only prevent these diseases, but to reverse them.
Exactly. And you just said your grandfather was taking cholesterol medications like statins and still died out of a heart disease.
Oh, yeah.
So most people take cholesterol medications with the hope that it's going to protect their heart. And I've literally been talking about this on my reels, that a statin does not lower your chances of heart diseases. A statin does not protect your heart. It only pushes the cholesterol down, which in fact is only trying to deal with the inflammation in your body. So you're literally putting out the smoke, but not the source of the fire, and the fire which is creating the smoke. So, and that is so important. Like your inflammation in your cells, in your body, you're not dealing with that through food and lifestyle, and all you're trying to do is push the cholesterol down with the hope that, wow, okay, my heart is safe, but then you die out of a heart disease.
Yeah, the doctors would just tell him, don't put as much salt on your food, but you can still eat this chicken and this beef and all the animal products in the world he was eating. I mean, granted, he did live into his old age, but my whole thing is if we can have a quality of life and not be sick and in hospitals and having open heart surgeries, I would prefer that. And when we look at the places in the world called blue zones where people are living the longest, they are predominantly plant-based. There's definitely other factors like, the environment around them. There's less radiation and less cars, and it's more peaceful, and they're getting moderate exercise. But diet plays a huge part in why these people are living over 100 years old without any medication.
Also community. They spend a lot of time with their community, their family, their loved ones, which makes you more happier within. Like, health is not only about what's on the plate. I always say, let's heal beyond the plate, because you also need to find your source of joy and happiness. And that's what I think the Blue Zones have, which you very beautifully put out there. Do you think if these slaughterhouses would be open and transparent, people would be irked by it and then choose to eat more plant-based? Because my mom went through that. She was a non-vegetarian and she gave up meat when she went to the slaughterhouse and she saw the goat being slit. So she said, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't put this in my body. And then she turned into a vegetarian. So do you think that kind of stuff would be like really hard-hitting for people to make a shift in the way they eat and the way they look at food?
Absolutely. And the industries have every incentive to hide what is going on behind these closed doors. There's a reason why it's illegal to film inside of slaughterhouses and why we have to go undercover to expose what is happening in these places. And people will try to say, oh, well, I got grass-fed meat, or it's humane and ethical. And there is nothing humane or ethical that happens behind these doors. These animals go into these places. They can smell the blood, hear the screams. They are terrified. They see their friends in front of them hanging with their throat slit, knowing that they're going to be next in line. And they cry. They try to get away. And that's the last moment on earth that they see is a person, a human being coming at them with a knife.
Yeah. And I don't think that's humane or that's like a peaceful death for anyone. I mean, who would want to be slit at their throat and just die? Nobody would want that, right?
No. And I think human beings, as we have the capacity to possess empathy, we have morals. And so when we see blood or we see another living being suffering, it's just innate within us. It's human nature to want to help. And so what I like to share with people is we are not fighting human nature. We are fighting habit. And for me, that's a winnable battle, because I can then help reconnect people with that nature that they have. If you take a little child and you put them in a crib and you hand them an apple and a bunny rabbit, that child is going to eat the apple and play with the bunny rabbit. And so that shows us right there that we don't have these carnivorous instincts. In fact, we want to treat animals with kindness. And when I go out and I am on the street talking with people, filming my videos, sometimes I'll ask them, okay, if there was a pig right here in front of us, and this pig was tied up to a tree, and you saw somebody walk over and kick that pig, what would you do?
Stop them.
Exactly. And that's what they say. And I was like, okay, so you would stop them. What's the difference if that same thing is happening behind a closed door? What would you try to do? Try to open the door and stop them.
But then I think what they see it as is food. They don't see it as a pig. They see it as meat with a lot of spices and marination and the taste. I think all that people are focusing on is to satisfy their taste buds.
Yeah.
And just to get the so-called protein from the meat.
They're totally disconnected. And I remember that day that I saw that pig livestock truck on the highway when I was 13. When I went to dinner that night, my grandparents had some type of pork dish. And that was the first time I connected that food on my plate with a once living being. And when you do that, and when you truly become more mindful and aware of how our actions are affecting others, your whole life changes, your whole world changes, because you start to actually see the truth and the violence behind these products. Like, I don't go into a supermarket and walk down the meat aisle and salivate. Instead, I cry. I get upset. I see a dead body.
Yeah. And also these meat industries cover the meat that they are selling in the supermarkets with a lot of nitrites, which are so carcinogenic, and nobody's talking about them. The ham, the bacon, the sausages, everything is loaded with chemicals, because how is that meat going to stay fresh for so long on that shelf without any preservatives? And those preservatives are getting into our body. And then we are like, why do we have so many cancers? Why do we have so many fatal diseases today? It's a simple math and people don't get it.
Absolutely. It's almost as if it's karma coming back at us.
Yes.
What we do unto others comes back to us. And so I want people to really think of this not as a sacrifice, not as giving up the foods that you love or the clothing that you like to wear or the makeup products that might have been tested on animals. It's not about giving things up. It's about finding alternatives that match in quality or are better and that don't hurt others. It's really just not taking what wasn't ours to take in the first place.
Exactly. And do you also think, like, I always consider food as prana, as energy, as life-giving. It gives you life. Now, when you're eating something dead, of course, there is no life energy left in that food. How does that affect our mental, emotional health and just our mental state? Because today we are also battling a lot with mental issues, mental health issues, emotional issues. We aren't able to process emotions, aggression, anger. We're seeing all that in people. What have you seen in this 7 years of vegan journey?
You are what you eat. And so when you are putting in this fear, this violence, and this suffering, truly the cortisol levels, the stress that these animals release, these hormones as they're being killed, that goes into our bodies when we eat that. So for sure, it can manifest in various ways. And we're seeing so many people that experience high levels of depression, anxiety. And for me, I think I didn't battle these things beforehand, so I can't speak directly on that. But I do notice this lighter feeling. I will say that I find that by going vegan, I'm more mindful and just connected to life around me and through yoga practice as well and vibrations. It's like when we look at what we're eating and consuming, it actually does adjust at our vibrations and our levels. So like when you're meditating, right, that can help raise your vibration and you feel better, you feel more connected to the world around you. But when you are eating low vibrational foods like meat, dairy, and eggs, it absolutely affects the way that you're feeling. And so I notice that when I'm eating mostly like high fruit, high diet, when I'm mostly eating fruits and vegetables and light foods, I feel much better. Because you could also be vegan, let's be real, and eat Oreos and potato chips all day and then say, well, I don't feel well on a vegan diet. I'm going back to eating animals. And I'm like, you were eating chips all day long. Don't blame veganism.
Yeah, because I think people get it wrong. For them, everything vegan is healthy and expensive. I think that's the myth that people have around veganism. But I keep telling my clients as well, everything vegan is not healthy. Like you rightly said, your Oreos, your chips, and all the junk food that you get on the supermarket shelves, they again have no prana, no vibration, no energy. Nothing is translating into your vibrational health. Like nothing is getting into your healthy vibration, that you want out of your food. It's not happening. So it has to be a whole food plant-based diet. And that's what a vegan diet is all about. And a life-sustaining diet, a health-sustaining diet, and a disease-reversal diet. So talking about veganism, I also want to loop in spirituality over here. Because the world now, I think in the last couple of years, I've seen a big shift towards spirituality, especially after COVID. People have suddenly moved towards spiritual stuff. They want to do spiritual activities. They want to indulge in spiritual sadhana, which is great. But some of them also consume non-vegetarian foods and meat while working on their spiritual evolution. What do you have to say about that?
I find it difficult to be able to do that. For me, I mean, veganism actually connected me with spirituality. I think when you become more connected to all living beings and to the divine, and you don't want to cause harm, ahimsa, you want to practice being kind. And when you're vibrating at a high vibration, it's not appealing to cause violence, to slit throats, to steal babies from their mothers in the dairy industry and kill them. So I find that so many people like to talk the talk and they preach all these things, but then when it actually comes to walking the walk and putting these teachings into practice, people aren't doing it. And what veganism does is it allows you every single day of your life to really walk the walk and to put these practices of peace into reality.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You see people that will say, well, we use every part of the animal and we show respect. And my answer to that is, how do you want to be respected? Do you want your life taken from you? If somebody said, well, I respected you, so I'm going to take your life, when they don't actually need it for survival, right? So what does respect really mean? To me, respect is seeing a soul in every living being and recognizing that they have a right to be here on this planet just like I do. And I am not superior to that individual. And if I can do everything in my power to not harm them, I'm going to try and do that.
Yeah. No, that's so true, because the same thing happened with me when I turned vegan. I started walking towards spirituality more, and there was more empathy, there was more compassion. Like you rightly said, you see God and soul, like the creator in every being, like in every speck of life, you see the creator. And how can you eat that thing? How can you kill that living being and eat it when there's God in that? So then, are you a hypocrite? Like, you're spiritual, but you're eating meat. And, that's a bit of hypocrisy, I feel, over there, where you're like, okay, you're preaching, like you rightly said, you're preaching, but you're not like doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that comes very naturally to people when they walk on a spiritual path. They don't want to harm anything, and they don't want to eat anything that's living. But there are still people who want to evolve spiritually but can't give up their meat. So I think the best thing they can do is try veganism or try going plant-based. What would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, when I look back at before I was vegan, it was the lowest point in my life as a person. Like, I look back and I was definitely not spiritual. I was selfish. I was just concerned about when the next party was and what I was going to wear. And after going vegan and leaving animals off my plate, it was like this whole mindset shift of, instead of taking from the earth and taking from others and looking at everyone else of what they can do for me, it was more of like the opposite of like, how can I serve? And I think that yoga actually teaches us that the happiest people are the ones that serve and uplift the lives of others.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, I think that like the idea of going vegan can be daunting to some people, because they're like, I have to change my life around. I have to clean out the fridge. I have leather shoes in the closet. What do I do? And so I encourage people to look at this as just reconnecting the morals that they already have with their choices. And it's just about finding little swaps and alternatives. So you can have that amazing curry or dal that you love making. You can have the saag paneer and just switch out the cheese with tofu. And so it's finding those little swaps and alternatives, and it's a lot easier than you think it is, because when you really connect with the why of why you are going vegan, you figure out the how.
Yeah.
The how becomes easy.
Yeah, where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Exactly.
And so beautifully you put it out there that it's not about what they can do for me, it's about what I can give back. And that's a very important rule of spirituality, seva. It's a very important aspect.
Yes.
So sadhana and seva are two aspects of spirituality, and seva is so important. And I think the biggest seva, that's service. Seva means service in English. And I think the biggest seva you can do is just not harm them and not eat them.
Yeah, exactly. It's simply, it's just the bare minimum, I believe, of what we could do, of just not, like, if I'm walking down the street, I'm not going to just kick a dog, because I don't have to. Why would I cause suffering to that individual if I don't have to? And so simply as just, not eating animals, not wearing them, not testing on them, that is the bare minimum. And then from there, how can I be a better person? Maybe I can volunteer some of my time helping human beings, or volunteering some of my time teaching children at a school, or volunteering at an animal shelter, whatever it is. These are like, okay, next level, like maybe I can help out in those ways, but simply just not hurting an animal is like literally the bare minimum.
That's true. Also, in the Indian household, our women have to do things that they may not like to. Like my mom turned a vegetarian, but she still has to cook meat for my dad. And that's seen as a woman's responsibility or her duty. And I know it sometimes she really, she cringes, when she sees meat and she has to wash it and she has to clean it and then cook it. I know she doesn't like it, but it's just a part of the role that she's playing as a housewife. How do you think that would affect a woman's mental, emotional well-being when she has to do something that she doesn't believe in?
I think that that's devastating. I'm just trying to think if I were in that position, what I would do, because on one hand, I understand the dynamic and maybe it's different here and she has to play the role of the housewife and she's been with your dad many, many years. But then on the other hand, going against her morals and everything she believes in, I think that it can very much affect her mentally, physically even, because touching the meat with the bacteria that's on it, it gets all over the kitchen. It can affect her physically. For me, with my relationships, I think that a basic principle of respect starts with somebody respecting my values and my morals. So I would never put up with that. Like, I would rather be single the rest of my life than have somebody force me to cook and dismember and season an animal for them. But, I guess in her situation, I can't speak because I'm not in that position, but my heart does break for people like that. And has she tried bringing your dad to like an animal sanctuary or?
He wouldn't go.
Really?
So before we move on to the next segment, I quickly want to give a shout out to my amazing sponsor, Urban Platter, for powering season 1 of That Healing Feeling with Neha Ranglani.
When we really look at this issue as a social justice issue, just like we would civil rights, just like we would women's rights, when we look at animal rights, we don't try to find better ways to do the wrong thing. We truly stand against this fully. And so to be with a partner that does not value or see the world the same way you do is, I think, the hardest part about being vegan.
I think if my mom has to put her foot down, my dad would be okay with it because then he'll just have to order it from outside. But I think my mom does it just out of love and care and concern for him because, that's just how Indian culture is. That's how women are conditioned to behave and to be in their house. So I think it comes from more of the need to just be a good wife than anything else. But I'm sure, right now we are living in the 21st century, so women can put their foot down and stop probably cooking if they don't want to cook meat for their partner. And we have a lot of options available outside. And
yes,
if people want, they could definitely opt for those.
There's a lot at stake here. If I were one of those animals that was next in line at the slaughterhouse, how would I want somebody advocating for me? And, being that your mom saw this goat being slaughtered, she obviously was affected by it and never wanted to eat an animal ever again. Yet now she has to be part of the process of causing all these other animals to suffer just because her partner wants to eat it. For me, there's no excuse for animal abuse. And I don't care if my mother, my father, my partner, my friend, if they want to eat it, that doesn't make it okay that this animal had to go through what they went through. So I'm very strict and adamant about that. And I think part of the reason why I'm so militant is because I've seen this firsthand. Part of the work that I do is I do undercover investigations inside of meat, dairy, and egg farms. And I film this to show it to the public. And so if these people that are eating these animal products had to watch the footage while they're eating it, they probably wouldn't love it so much. And they would probably put that fork down.
Yeah, that's why they don't want to see it.
Of course.
I also feel if the women put their foot down and they choose not to cook, a lot of people will reduce their consumption of meat because then they have to depend on outside sources. And sometimes it's not always convenient, possible, affordable, easy to get it. So I think that ways a lot of consumption of meat may go down. That's just what I'm assuming. I'm hoping if that happens, once women choose not to cook at home.
If they're the ones cooking, then they should be the ones choosing what to make. And with a bunch of spices and delicious plants, and I don't see why somebody would complain about that. You're not sacrificing flavor, texture. Nowadays, there's so many alternatives.
Too many alternatives.
Yes.
I think when I became a vegan like 7-8 years back, there weren't too many alternatives. You had to make everything from scratch at home. But now there are some amazing brands that are doing some great stuff and great work in the space of healthy vegan food. And I think we have a choice to make there, and we should choose wise. So Jamie, you've been vegan for 8 years. I'm sure you must have heard some myths about veganism, because I hear them almost every day. What is that one common myth that you've heard repeatedly in so many years?
That soy gives you boobs.
Soy gives you boobs. Yeah, I've heard that too. I'm like, no.
I'm like, I wish it did.
Especially for the men, I think. That's what they talk about a lot. Soy is very controversial. All they say is a man shouldn't eat soy because he'll get man boobs. And I'm like, no. Also, his testosterone depends on how much he's smoking, the amount of alcohol he's drinking, the amount of stress he's not managing well. It's not just the poor soy.
Absolutely not. And soy is a phytoestrogen, which means that it can't affect mammalian estrogen. If they're so freaking worried about soy and estrogen, then they should definitely stop consuming dairy, because mammalian estrogen from lactating female cows has very high amounts of estrogen. So I don't know. I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot more dudes that drink high amounts of dairy with huge tits over Whole Foods plant-based vegans that have none.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen them too. And also the amount of hormonal imbalance cases that I'm seeing in my patients is insane, because dairy, there's dairy everywhere in our diet. So for PCOS women, in infertility, in men having high prolactin levels, I've seen so many men having high prolactin levels in the last few months, and I'm like, what's going on, guys? You got to get off the dairy, because you're putting in a lot of hormones in your body.
Totally. People that take the blood test, you can actually find traces of these hormones and antibiotics from the animals in our own blood.
Yeah.
Which is, it makes sense, because the animals are pumped up with so much crap to keep them alive while they're living in these terrible conditions. But it's a big problem. Speaking of hormones, the one thing that has affected my hormones the most was when I was on birth control and the pill. And I've been off of that for a few years, but that was not good. That really messed up my hormones, and I didn't get my period for a whole year. And of course, everybody's like, it's because you're vegan. It's because you're vegan. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with me being vegan. In fact, being a vegan and being on a healthy plant-based diet has helped to mitigate my symptoms of PCOS.
Yes, as it's done for many of my clients. Because when you're consuming dairy, like you rightly said, you're putting in a lot of hormones, and that's affecting your hormonal receptors and your estrogen, progesterone levels, and it's creating so much havoc. Right. The amount of acne, the skin issues, the hair fall. And then people are like, no, but I love my paneer. And the kind of paneer we get in India is all fake. Because where is the supply for the amount of demand we have for dairy in India? It's crazy. And like you said, birth control pills, again, are the conventional treatment for PCOS or for infertility or for hormonal imbalances, irregular periods, is birth control pills. And I'm like, what's going on, guys? Why are we putting hormones in our body to correct our reproductive system or to improve the health of it? How is that going to work? Because the minute you start taking OCPs, your body thinks, okay, I'm getting hormones from the outside, so I need to stop producing it. I don't need to work. And then, in a layman language, your reproductive system becomes lazy to do its own job.
Right.
Because there's a feedback loop. Right? There's a feedback loop which tells your brain, okay, there's so much hormone in the blood, and now I don't need more. So if it's coming from the outside, why is your body going to make it within? Because it doesn't need more. It just needs that much. And the outside hormone that you're taking doesn't do even half of what you produce in your body. And people don't understand that.
Right.
Besides that, the amount of gut issues it gives you, the dysbiosis it gives you, it completely changes your microbiome profile in your gut. And there the bad guys grow and feed on our food and create all the havoc and toxins, which again affects our hormonal imbalance. So it's like a vicious cycle we get stuck up in. And even to get yourself out of it takes time. I'm sure you must have taken some time to get off the OCPs and then have natural periods.
Yeah, it took about a year.
It took about a year because it takes that much time for the body to come back to its feedback loop and understand, okay, now I need to produce this. Plus, you need to nourish your body with the right foods and the right lifestyle, yoga, breath work, meditation to sort of help your reproductive system work.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a really weird period in my life because the birth control that I had been on since I was 16 was something I took every day and my body got used to it. And then when about 6 years later, I was just like, I don't want to be on this stuff anymore because there's a lot of side effects with that too, you know, like cancers,
hormone dependent cancers.
Yes. And I started learning about it and I was like, I am going off of this. Like my doctor did not tell me any of this stuff. And when you're on the birth control, it can help you with your skin. It can help, you know, I think it helped me regulate, I had my period when I was on it. Yeah, it helped regulate it a little bit. But then when I went off of it, it took about a year. And then because of my plant-based diet, I think that it helped. Now I have it very regularly. I barely have cramps. Like it's back to normal. But it was, Yeah,
OCPs just help you to mask the symptoms and feel better. Temporary. It's a temporary aid, but it's not like a root cause resolution of your reproductive health issues, you know? So I think that's extremely important. And once you stop it, all your symptoms come back with a vengeance because now the body doesn't have the same hormones that's coming in and doesn't have its own hormones within. So there's a hormonal imbalance. The testosterone, which was high, was just being suppressed with the medications. But now that the medications are not there, boom, the testosterone is up again. And then you see all your symptoms. And that's the crazy part of it. And I hope people realize that there are better ways of improving your health, your hormones, and you don't need to be on external hormones, be it from the dairy or be it from the oral contraceptive pills.
Absolutely. And when you're eating in a way that gets you all of the nutrient profiles that you need, from your carbs to your protein to your fats, especially is important for women and for our brain health, you will feel better. And right now we're in an age of misinformation where you have these influencers that come online with no nutritional degree whatsoever. Yeah. And they start talking about how a carnivore diet is good for you and it will help you lose weight. And then people go keto. And in the short term, their body goes into ketosis. So yes, they will burn the carbs. Yes, they will lose the weight. But as soon as you start eating normal again, you'll put that weight right back on and you've completely destroyed so many other aspects of your body. I mean, our brains run off of carbs, off of glucose. I'm like, what are people doing to themselves?
So true. Also, I want to understand about the US dairy and meat industry. Now, this is a topic which is very important because we as Indians ape a lot from the West and we do everything that the West is doing. And just like you have animal agriculture there and the dairy industry practices that are so lethal over there and so unethical, we're seeing the same practices being replicated in India now. Why is US propagating dairy and meat as a part of a healthy diet? And what are the things that we are not shown? What are the practices that is hidden from us and we're not aware of what's going on behind the scenes?
Totally. So this is a two-part question. And the first part is, why are they promoting it as a healthy diet? So part of why they're promoting it as a healthy diet is because it's a profitable industry. And so if they can push, double cheeseburger, or they can push a bucket of fried chicken and people are going to buy it, then they have every incentive to market it in such way. And so part of the system and the way that the system's set up in the US is we have something called government subsidies. So these tax subsidies take our tax dollars as Americans and they subsidize the meat and dairy industries very heavily. So what that means is that, let's say a dairy farmer doesn't actually make enough money to cover the costs of the amount of land, water, food that it takes to raise these animals and feed these animals and produce the product, our tax dollars will actually subsidize that process, which is the only reason that you're able to see meat, dairy, and egg products at the cost that they are. That's why it can be inexpensive to get a bucket of fried chicken or a burger, from McDonald's, when really there's so many hidden costs involved with that. So when it comes to them promoting it as a healthy diet, I mean, sure, you see people that eat certain animal products that can be somewhat healthy. I mean, it's like playing Russian roulette. It's like, okay, if you're eating chicken, you might not be getting as much of the cholesterol that you might get from eating a piece of fish, but you're still getting that in some way. So there's ways to like mitigate it. But the point is that the healthiest diet is a plant-based diet. And that if you want to reduce your risk for getting many of these diseases, a plant-based diet would be the way to go. So that's first and foremost. The meat, dairy, and egg industry, they have every incentive to tell you that these products are healthy. And it's the narrative that we've all been told. Our parents were raised with this idea that you need meat for protein or that you need dairy for calcium. But when we actually look at studies, peer-reviewed science and peer-reviewed studies, for example, the China study is a great study that looks at a society over 20 years and finds that people that consume the most amount of dairy and egg products, meat, dairy, and egg products, have the highest rates of these foodborne illnesses, cancer, heart disease, diabetes. Yeah. And then they find that the people that consume a lot less of that or none at all have low rates of that. Yeah. Put them on a plant-based diet, right? So that all being said, I think that people are going to believe information that confirm their pre-existing biases. It's that confirmation biases. So we seek and look for information that keeps us comfortable in our ways and in our choices. And so when part of the work that I do is I investigate inside of factory farms and slaughterhouses, and I work with people that place cameras inside these places to expose the conditions. And guys, it's bad. It is like way worse than people think it is. When I go inside these places, you're not able to smell what I'm smelling through the camera. God. You're not actually able to see and experience the amount of ammonia in the air and the disease. I mean, I'm looking at dead animals mixed in with live animals. I'm seeing parasites coming out of these birds. Oh my God. Oh. I'm seeing animals that are filled with snot coming out of them. I'm seeing, just the other day I was on a dairy farm, animals that are covered in feces, laying in their own waste. Babies that are dumped into dumpsters. I mean, just like the worst of the worst things that I don't think anybody would want to support. Yeah. And it's also important to note that like these industries didn't just one day say, we want to torture a bunch of animals, let's put them in factory farms. They didn't say that. It grew from a small family farm that once existed in the 1800s, and it became what it is today based on the demand and based on the desire to make profit.
And also the advertisement, because the way they advertise this is good for health, high in protein. You need the nutrients in the meat, the B12, the iron. And I think that is why people are also wanting to consume. That's why the high demand, that's why the supply, and that's why the unethical practices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's a lot to take in. And I think that it's can be confusing because you do see doctors and you do see athletes promoting animal products. Yeah. And people that you look at and you think they are the epitome of health. I want to be like that. But they're not showing all the hidden costs that are associated with that. And you'll see a big bodybuilder that looks fairly healthy, that's got a six-pack, that definitely eats a lot of protein, drop dead at 50 years old.
Yeah.
Why is nobody talking about that? So just because somebody might look a certain way on the outside doesn't always reflect what's going on the inside.
That's true. Some years back, I watched this documentary, What the Health? Mm-hmm. And Kip Anderson, the director, goes to this chief scientific medical officer of the American Diabetes Association.
Yep.
And he asks him, why have they promoted beef or red meat on their website? Because all the recipes on American Diabetic Association has red meat, chicken, beef, all the non-vegetarian stuff. And he questioned the officer, why are you promoting that on your website when it's so evident that these foods are inflammatory and they cause a lot of gut issues, and they definitely cause insulin resistance. So why are you promoting that? Because people really look up to such organizations. And the officer got extremely uncomfortable and he's like, listen, I can't do this. And he walked out, which clearly shows that the transparency of public health messaging is so compromised. And what organizations are we even believing in? What are we trusting for our health when all they are doing is just filling their pockets.
Exactly. Like, why don't we look at what got these people in the patient chair to begin with? I am 100%, I am 99.9% certain that those people were not eating a whole foods plant-based diet. Yeah. And so if you go to the American Dietetic Association, or you go to the American Heart Association, you look at what these recipes are recommended for heart disease patients, it's absurd. And then you look at the sponsorships behind these big organizations and you see that it's the National Beef Cattlemen's Association. It's, all these different meat groups that are sponsoring these places. So
basically what we are trusting is really not the right thing, because all they are doing is trying to fill in their pockets while affecting and not caring about our health. They don't care what happens to our health. Yeah.
How about the craziest thing is that these groups will actually pay for studies to be conducted. And so you'll have the National Beef Cattlemen's Association pay for a study.
Wow.
To then have something come out that says red meat's not bad for your heart. And it's like, you funded the study. Of course you're going to say that. And so then you look at like what is the control group, what actually is going on in the study, and it's totally biased.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And then we believe a lot in the scientific papers and the research studies, and most of them are sponsored.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so I always like to tell people I don't have any incentive to get somebody to eat a piece of broccoli. Like, I don't run the big broccoli ag association, I'm like, I don't really gain anything from it. I just don't want animals to be hurt. I want you to thrive and survive. And I think people can feel that. Like, when you want them to feel better and when you are rooting for them, people can feel that kind of energy. And that's all it really is. Like, people can say, oh, she's crazy and militant. And I am passionate about these issues because of all the destruction to our planet, to the animals, and to people's health. Yeah. I've watched people that are close to me that I love die because of these foodborne related illnesses. And animals too.
Yeah. And I love your passion because I love what you do.
It's an unpopular opinion, but we can't influence the world trying to be like it.
That's true. Is also profitability a reason why the US government doesn't pay attention to the climatic changes that are taking place all across the world? We are seeing rainfall in summer, we are seeing snowfall in autumn, and we're seeing different climatic conditions which aren't meant to be the way they are in the world today because of global warming. And animal agriculture plays such an important role in increasing the carbon footprint and just deforestation and methane emissions. And that all is affecting our climate and us. Why is the US government not taking it up as a mainstream discussion?
I think it has a lot to do with capitalism and big business. And so by allowing oil to be drilled and by allowing businesses to get away with destroying the environment, it's all about money and all these different deals that are being made. And then politicians get elected because you have big groups that are backing them and throwing money at them. And so it is a really big problem because our future generations, the one that caused the least amount of these issues, are going to be the ones that are dealing with climate catastrophes. And we're already starting to see them now. Yet you still have people that deny and you have people that don't believe in climate change. And it's like, how do you explain what's happening right now? The rising sea levels, the rising temperatures. We're experiencing some of our hottest temperatures in parts of the world. And what's also sad about all of this is that you have people that are going to be climate refugees. You're already starting to see it. The people that are causing the least amount of harm are dealing with the repercussions. And animal agriculture is directly tied to this. So when we look at deforestation, 91% of the Amazon rainforest deforestation is due to animal agriculture. For grazing, for clearing the land to grow crops to feed animals, for cattle grazing. And you see water use in animal agriculture. In the US, over half of our fresh water supply is used for animal agriculture. And we don't have unlimited amounts of fresh water. When we look at the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. It's the entire transportation system, airplanes, trains, cars, still releases less emissions than the entire animal agriculture industries. So we could take shorter showers, we could recycle, we could compost, but if we do not address our food system, we will not reach our climate targets. Yeah. When we look at the amount of methane that is coming out of these industries, it's 150 billion tons of methane per day from freaking cows. And that is 28 times more potent than carbon, than CO2. So why is nobody talking about this?
But aren't there any bodies or organizations now taking up this as a very, very crucial issue that we need to deal with?
There definitely are people that I associate with that are trying to talk more about it. The Plant-Based Treaty is one of them. But when we look at the big environmental groups, they're not talking about animal agriculture, and they just want to keep the focus on fossil fuels, and they want to continue to blame authorities and government, and, you know, which I think we do need to get laws changed for sure. I'm not against that. But change, I believe, starts from the bottom up. And if you can't even change what you eat for breakfast, I have a hard time believing that you are going to be able to change the world.
Yeah. Which is affecting everyone. It's affecting all of us.
Absolutely.
Wow. And what about the luxury and the beauty industry in the US and everywhere across the world?
Yeah.
These people have such unethical animal practices, and we are carrying these Birkins, and there's Hermes, Prada, Chanel, all these brands. We're just running behind non-vegan, unethical luxury products. And I'm seeing this trend grow all across the world. Sometimes I wonder, is it the lack of self-worth? Or is it that you want to fit in the society when you carry such products to be more relevant and to be more accepted by your own peers? Yeah. What is it that makes people buy these products? And what are these industries doing by promoting such products? I mean, why is this practice even prevalent?
It's like, how insecure do you have to be, and how unaware do you have to be to buy all these things? What comes to mind is Canada Goose, the Canada Goose jackets with the coyote fur lining, and it's very popular back home, and it's like everybody looks like each other. I'm like, why don't you want to be an individual and wear your own jacket, you know? And there's other alternatives that will keep you warm, right? So yeah, I think that when it comes to beauty and fashion, it is a certain kind of evil to take a life away from an individual that didn't want to die for a product that's so vain.
And what I've seen out of these videos that I've watched on social media, and, you know, the Hermes videos was out, the way they kill the crocodile to make a Birkin is inhuman to another level. I mean, we just cannot fathom what's happening in that industry.
A lot of the times they'll take a large needle pole and just stick it right in their brain and then skin them alive.
Skin them alive.
I've seen them skinned alive.
And then we carry that thinking, wow, we are so, so worthy of carrying something that's dead, that's died for us. Do people even think of it this way? Do they? Or they just look at it as a luxury product that they can afford, and the more expensive it is, the better it is for their self-worth and for them to be in the society and to show off what they can afford? I
would like to think that they don't wear those products because they want to torture an animal. I truly believe that they're just disconnected in many ways. And it's just easier to close their eyes and not think about it. I mean, it would be psychopath behavior if you just buy that because you hate crocodiles and want to walk around in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that it's this level of status, and they're trying to show that their status in society, and whether it's wearing a long fur coat, it's people wear these things to say, I'm wealthier than you, and look at me, I want the attention, right? I mean, why else would you wear that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to think that it's just complete disconnect, and it's, well, look at me, I can shop at these luxury brands. But what I would like to say to those people is you could still shop at luxury brands like Stella McCartney, not sacrifice on any quality material, have something that's a beautiful design, and just eliminate the animal suffering.
Yeah.
They're using amazing technologies to create vegan leathers that are sustainable. People will come at me and say, but plastic isn't sustainable. Well, even the worst kinds of vegan leathers, PU, polyurethane, is still not as bad for the environment as cow skin leathers or other animal skins. Yeah. For many reasons. One being the toxic chemicals that you have to dunk the skins in that go into our waterways. And there's actually lots of plastic on animal skins. People don't realize that. So that's one, but they're creating so many alternative vegan leathers that are made from pineapple leaves, apple skin. Yes, mangoes, kombucha, tea leaves. It's incredible. Next gen materials are another cool source that a material innovation, MII, Material Innovation Initiative, is working on. And they're taking these next gen materials that have a life cycle that actually will break down after 100 years. So we need to not only think about our production now, but how will it be living in 100 years from now? Will it never break down and be in our landfills forever?
But I'm seeing these bigger brands also coming up with vegan bags and products. They are literally catching up the race because people are probably demanding for that kind of stuff. I've seen Gucci come up with a nice vegan bag, a vegan leather bag, and I was pretty impressed. I'm like, okay, one step in the right direction, and that's what we need. We need more of this so that people can buy Gucci if they want to. People can buy Hermes.
Sure.
It just doesn't have to come from an animal. It can come from the vegan leathers, like you mentioned, and you'll still be relevant amongst your peers. You'll still have the status maintained in the society, and you won't feel like, okay, you're just not worthy enough.
And you're seeing this with the beauty brands too, where they'll put the label of the Leaping Bunny, the cruelty-free label, vegan. Like, these are almost buzzwords now. And I think to a certain extent, when people see plant-based, they associate it with some level of health. I think that it's like kind of trendy and people will gravitate towards it. But, when you think about taking an animal, putting them in a cage and pouring acid into their eyeballs, or sewing their eyes shut, or putting burn marks on them. I mean, these are the things that happen in animal testing laboratories. So what? I could wear mascara? Are you kidding me? So I think that if we can make these products available for consumers, and where if they go into a store and they have two options, they have a shampoo that was tested on animals and a shampoo that wasn't. If they could just reach their arm over one aisle in the market and buy that shampoo, it's like, why wouldn't they? So even in the most grocery stores now, it's like you have the cow milk or you have the oat milk. You have the vegan cheese or you have the regular cheese. It's becoming so much more convenient to just reach for the kinder alternative.
Yeah, just to choose the right thing.
Yes. And what I would like to see is companies incentivize people to do so by making these products cheaper, right? So like if you go to a coffee shop, it's ridiculous that some coffee shops charge more for the plant milk. Like we just did a campaign.
They do.
Some of them do, but we just did a campaign against Starbucks where we demanded that Starbucks drop the surcharge. Like, we shouldn't have to pay more for a more environmentally and kinder choice, right? So Starbucks actually dropped the surcharge in America.
Wow.
And so we're working on other places to do the same. But we slowly but surely are going to see the prices level out for the premium vegan cheeses come down. It's just, as I said before, it's not subsidized like the meat, dairy, and egg industries are. If you really had to pay for a burger without the government subsidies, you would be looking at $40, $50 burgers or more. But because our tax dollars subsidize it, so slowly over time, we are going to see these shifts. But in the meantime, a whole foods, plant-based diet, natural products like coconut oil for lotion is really good for you. That is going to be the cheapest and probably the healthiest
even
way.
As a makeup remover.
Yeah.
Like, coconut oil is the best.
Love it.
You do it with any other product, or you do it with coconut oil, your skin feels so supple and so hydrated after you do it with coconut oil. Like,
Soft.
just get your makeup off. But I think that shift is slowly and steadily now it's happening, because I see a lot of people also creating awareness, though we still need a lot of work in that area. But I see the awareness being created about using cleaner products, for your health, for your skin, for your hormones, because all these products that contain animal stuff in it, like, the animal parts that get into the products, they're also not good for your health. Besides that, the toxins that these products contain, they damage your health, because everything gets into your system, your skin absorbs everything, and the liver has to process it. And now this awareness is slowly and steadily building up. Some brands are doing some great work, especially in India. I'm seeing this huge shift where brands are creating clean, cruelty-free, vegan makeup and beauty products, which are so good for your skin, for your health. Like, it's literally feeding your skin with the right stuff. And that is something that people need to choose more, because you may go in for your Macs and your Maybellines and your L'Oreals and, all these products which are very admired and very looked up upon by the fashion influencers, the beauty influencers. But when these influencers are promoting and talking about these products, people are buying them, and it's affecting their health, and it's also causing a lot of animal cruelty, because they're supporting that product.
Right.
We need more people to talk about cleaner brands that are doing some, toxin-free products, some products that are not tested on animals.
We can vote with our dollars. And with every single purchase we make, we can ask ourselves, are we funding and supporting a system that is treating animals the way that we were talking about, in horrible ways, in violent, cruel ways? Are we supporting a system that is causing havoc on our environment, wreaking havoc on our environment, that is destroying our health? Or are we going to support a company and a system that's trying to do better, that's practicing more sustainable ways and techniques in their businesses, right? So the question really becomes, what kind of world do we want to see? And we are the ones creating that world.
That's true. But are you seeing this shift in US as well, where brands are doing this kind of work? Because all the big brands come from the US.
I definitely am seeing more brands putting plant-based and using that as marketing ways. I think so. I mean, in the past, 7 to 8 years that I've been in the animal rights world, I've seen a lot more options become available. Even just, when we speak about food, right? Like, I have friends that have been vegan since the 70s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There was no vegan world then. There was no word.
Yep.
I think the word vegan wasn't coined then.
Yes. And so when I asked them about how was being vegan back then, like, what did you experience? And truthfully, they had to just eat fruits, vegetables, rice, lentils, and, more of like the whole foods. It wasn't like now I could go out for a vegan steak. Now I can have pizza, burritos, lasagnas. I mean, anything you can imagine, and it tastes amazing and it's great. But they had to really look at what they were buying. And so it was much harder. It was not convenient at all. And what's cool about people that have been vegan for this many years is they look so amazing after all these years, and they're healthier. They're not on all these medications.
And I think that's the life we want for ourselves, for our families, where we don't have to live like patients. We don't have to spend on medical bills and, in medical insurances and hospitals. We want to live a life of health, vitality, vigor, and enthusiasm. And I think that can only come when you feel well from within.
Totally.
And all of it boils down to what we put on our plate and the way we treat ourselves overall.
Right? Yeah. And I think that the hardest part about being vegan is the hardest part about being vegan and what you are seeing is people that are eating in weird ways and then blaming veganism for why they don't feel good, when really they're just not eating a variety of foods or not taking blood tests and seeing what supplements they might need. And so if we could get all of vegans to just look into their health a little bit more, to take the blood test, to see doctors like you, to just take care of themselves, then we would see less people shifting back to animal products, looking for something that they could still get in a plant-based diet.
Yes. So Jamie, we are moving on to our next segment, the rapid fire. What's the one vegan dish you could eat every day for the rest of your life?
I absolutely love pad thai.
Pad thai. Noodles?
Noodles, yep, you get it without the egg, and it's amazing. Like, I love Thai food.
Okay, lovely. Tofu, tempeh, jackfruit. What's your favorite plant-based protein?
Tofu.
If you weren't a vegan activist, what career would you have pursued?
I would have liked to be a director or film producer. I really love the entertainment industry.
That's amazing. What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
Brush my teeth, and I practice yoga.
Oh, nice. If you had to live in one place for the rest of your life, where would it be and why?
Well, I've only lived in New York, so I would say New York because I just know it very well. It never sleeps. There's always stuff to do.
If you could have a billboard in Times Square about veganism, what would it say?
Go vegan and no one gets hurt.
What's your go-to comeback when someone says, but bacon?
But animals want to live.
Nice. That's a nice one. What's your favorite vegan pun or slogan?
My favorite vegan pun or slogan is not your mom, not your milk.
That's so cool. What's the most vegan-friendly city have you visited?
Los Angeles.
If you could be invisible for a day, what would you do?
If I could be invisible for the day, I would become either the president and I would change all the laws and reallocate where all the money is going to help animals, maybe.
So nice. So that was the end of our rapid fire. And with that, we come to an end of our very insightful and passionate episode that you have shared with us today, and all the amazing information, the knowledge, your experience, which I'm very, very sure that our audience is going to love and take back a lot in their own lives. And I hope they implement and make a change the way you are making for the world.
Well, thank you so much for having me and giving me a platform to speak about these things. And really, going vegan was the best thing I ever did in my entire life. And I just want to see a world where every living being is respected. And I truly believe that in order to have world peace, it has to start on our plates.
Yes. Guys, rethink about what you're putting on your plate, because it's very important, not only for your health, but also for the world we live in. And we are here to make a difference, and only we can make a difference. So let's do our bit. Yeah. And before you go, I have a small hamper for you. It's all healthy vegan hamper by Urban Platter, which has all amazing healthy stuff in it. And I hope you love it.
This is awesome. Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this and being here and sharing your heart out. I had a great time with you, Jamie.
Me as well. Hope to do it again soon. Yes. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for watching this episode till the end. And I'm sure you've taken back a lot from this episode about a vegan lifestyle and how it affects our health in totality. Once again, subscribe to our channel if you haven't, because that's how we can share more and more insightful episodes with you. And do share it with your friends and family who will value such information and benefit from the useful content we share. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.